I'm Riley Harvell. I am a Boys Nation senior counselor for the Madison Section. I was the 2004 Boys Nation president. I think at the Boys State Directors Conference, they kind of put out the call to see if there was anyone that was interested in coming on staff. As I began packing and preparing, and I dug out some old photos on Facebook, and put a post together that said, this is where I'm headed. I had senators from 2004 reach back out on the post, and we shared some stories and reminisced about the old times. And then one of them pointed out that it was exactly 2 decades ago, which at that point everybody got really quiet. And I think went and cried a little bit to themselves, and then we got back on and started joking again. So for better or for worse, I've never really broadcast, even within the South Carolina Boys State program. We had David Daniel as a junior counselor too in the section. Morgan is in our section, who won president this year, and we shared with him, you actually have 2 counselors that are former Boys Nation presidents. I think it's important to remember, and I've stressed with them, 2004 was the year after we declared war in Iraq, first full year of war in Iraq. 9/11 had been 3 years prior, and so it was a very different time in the course of our country, in the life of our nation. And so, as I came to Boys Nation, I had my life plan, as these senators seem to all have their life plan ahead of them. I knew where I was going, what I wanted to accomplish, and coming to Boys Nation really solidified to me that the military was going to be a piece of it. The presidency of Boys Nation and the experiences that followed the following year really kind of shaped that. So the American Legion convention that year was in Nashville, Tennessee, at the Grand Ole Opry, or the Opryland Hotel. Spending that week around Legionnaires, we spoke at the chaplain's breakfast, and then spoke to the convention as a whole with President George W. Bush and Secretary of Defense Donald Rumsfeld. We're both, as a 17-year-old, not really understanding the gravity of what I was doing, got up there and spoke to the convention, and looking out across the field of Legionnaires, knew that I knew where I wanted to go, right? And so from a life course trajectory, instead of going 4 years of college, going officer route, realizing that I want to be involved now, right? So I enlisted in the reserves that summer following my graduation from high school. I enlisted in the reserves, was going to do the reserve thing while I was in college, and then got to my junior year and got deployed. So it happens, right? You get posts from around the state, and they can put on Boys State, Girls State, or Legion Auxiliary does Girls State, but baseball, oratorical, right? I mean, massive scholarships in the oratorical and Boys State, and across the different programs. So you have more power together, banded together, but you can't get into it with the intention that the Legion's always going to be giving you something, and that you're going to take from the organization. I got out of political science and I went into logistics, but the needs of the Boys State program was a political science associate. And so I go to Boys State every year, and I run elections and go back to doing polls, which is something I interned in when I was in college. What I shared with them is that, from my Boys Nation year, looking 20 years into the future, 20 years into their future, that what I see is, I was president, and I've accomplished the things that I've accomplished in life. But there are 99 other stories from my year that didn't end in failure because they weren't elected president. So what I told the senators this week was that whether they're successful or whether they fail in their endeavors, they need to learn, they need to grow, because their story's not over. And I can look back 20 years and see the major successes